One of the major deal breakers for most people looking to do the van life and looking to live nomadically in a camper van, an RV, a sailboat, anything like that, is they have to give up a stable internet connection. That can both be a good thing and a bad thing, but if you're looking to make that Wi-Fi connection and you're looking to make that Wi-Fi connection regularly, I've got a few tips for you on how to set up a proper Wi-Fi antenna. There's a variety of Wi-Fi antennas you can get, ranging from giant antennas that are 60 feet up in the air with a big stand and everything, down to a little tiny one that plugged into the side of your computer. There's three parts to this Wi-Fi connection rig setup. There's the antenna, there's the amplifier, and there's the wireless card. Now, the antenna itself is just a piece of metal that conducts a certain frequency of radio signal. In this case, we're looking at the 2.4 gigahertz band for 802.11 B, G, and N. Those are the most popular ones that we're dealing with right now. The antenna part, that is a big decision. You have to decide between multitudes of different kinds of antenna. There's the Yagi antenna, which I use in my setup. It's a directional antenna that allows you to pick up signals from very far away in a straight line. It doesn't allow you to pick up signals that might be a few degrees off. So the downside to this system is you need to be able to rotate it. You need to be able to point it in different directions. There's also dish antennas. They're kind of like Yagi antennas. A lot of Yagi antennas are mixed with dish antennas. They're also directional. They can be stronger, bigger, but the problem with them is that if you have them on the exterior of your vehicle, they are not very aerodynamic. So you'd have to take them down every time you want to drive on the highway. There's the omnidirectional antenna. Now, those tend to be stick antennas that bounce out signals on a flat plane in all directions, but only on a flat plane. And lastly, there's isotropic, and those antennas go all 360 in all three dimensions, everywhere at once. The more focused the antenna tends to be, the further its range, and the less energy you're expending on making it multi-directional. So the isotropic can reach all directions, but it is the shortest range antenna. And the dish antenna is the longest range, but it is the most focused in. So for most people, the omnidirectional or the Yagi antenna are the best choices. The upside to the omnidirectional is you can set it up once and you don't have to point it, move it, figure out. You just have to get it as close as you can to whatever signal you're looking to pick up. The upside to the Yagi antenna is you can be further away, but then you need to be able to turn it, which is a big pain in the ass if you want to hard bolt it to the exterior of your van, for instance. So that much is fairly obvious. Now we're going to get into some more technical stuff. The boosters. The boosters are important. They actually are often packaged with antennas or with cards. The deal with them is basically they're there to boost the signal, like a gain on your amplifier, for instance. What they do is they take that signal in and then they'll increase it a certain advertised dBi, a certain strength of the signal will be increased. I've found that with a lot of manufacturers online, they don't necessarily deliver on what they advertise, so it might be worth your time to find a more reputable source that can deliver on the dBis that they're promising. The amplifier, or the booster, goes between the antenna and the Wi-Fi network card. To connect between the Wi-Fi antenna, the booster, and then the Wi-Fi card, you're looking at different kinds of connectors. Now, there's a few different types. Usually they're SMA connectors, but they can both be inverted or not inverted. So you have to look at which connectors you have on which devices and make sure that you can actually connect one to the other. That tends to be kind of an issue. It's really good to look into that and then look into the cables that you'll have to get, because keep in mind, if you want a permanent setup on your camper, you're going to need to be able to stretch farther distances. You've got your antenna and you've got your booster. So now we're looking for network cards. Now, Wi-Fi network cards come in a vast variety. If you cheap out, you tend to get ones that only operate on certain bands. They tend to be older, so they'll operate on the G band or the B band, and that's about it. But then, as you spend more money, you'll find cards that will do the B, G, and N band. Now, we're only looking for B, G, and N. We're not really looking for A or AC because those bands tend to use 5 gigahertz and not 2.4. So again, like I said, you need a dual band system. You need a dual antenna system and a dual card system. So that's a lot more complicated. It's possible to do, but it's something that you're going to have to consider. Is it worth the extra work for your setup? Like, do you really need that extra flexibility? The card you're looking for will have to have an external USB connection from your computer. It'll also have an external antenna connection. Those two things are critical. If you don't have that, then you might as well give up on having the booster or the antenna, or having a system set up apart from your computer. So the whole process of the Wi-Fi antenna is kind of null at that point. So once you've got that all set up, now you have to look at how you're going to plug it all in and how you're going to use it to best scope out your Wi-Fi. For me, I picked up a cheap Yagi antenna with a paired booster that was advertised at 25 dBi. It's a lot less. It was a cheap Chinese thing. I think I spent a maximum of $7 on it. I ordered it over from China. It arrived finally, and then I mounted it on my roof on a pole. Now the pole runs into the van and sits on a bushing, and that bushing allows the pole to swivel around while still keeping sealed to the top of the van. The upside to this is this sits underneath my solar panel. So because it sits under my solar panel, it doesn't need to be 110% weatherproof. It only has to be about 90% weatherproof. I find that the little cracks between the bushing and the pole don't end up leaking any water into the van, which is really nice. The downside is, of course, now that my pole is running down the middle of my van. So now I have to chop the pole off, I put a little handle on it, and I run the cable through the pole and into the van. This allows me to use my laptop at a comfortable place at my desk, and then still get great Wi-Fi signal from up high and outside of the vehicle. That outside the vehicle is very important. If you do set up a Wi-Fi antenna and you want it to get the best possible signal, it's good to remove it from the cage that is your vehicle. The van or the camper that you have is running a negative current of 12 volts through the entire frame, and that does a lot to diminish the signals that you would be getting normally out in the open air. So to set it up nice and high, which is above other vehicles, and outside of your own vehicle, you get over that whole hump of dealing with all of these Faraday cages rolling around on the road. Additionally to this, all buildings also have electrical wires and other signals running through. So the more signals and the more electrical and metal components you have between you and your source, the worse your signal is going to be. So setups like this Yagi antenna actually flourish the best in more rural locations where there's less interference. There's less power cables, there's less houses, and there's less Wi-Fi networks and less cell phones running around. This lets me pick up Wi-Fi signals from much further away. I've gotten 2-3 kilometers sometimes out of my Wi-Fi antenna in the country, and I've gotten less than 100 meters with my Wi-Fi connection in the city. So it's something that you're really going to have to think about where you are and how that's going to affect your signal. Okay, so you've got your Wi-Fi antenna. Now, where are you going to find free Wi-Fi? Now, there's a few spots I love to use. I love Starbucks, and I love hotels and gyms because they tend to have open, free, fast Wi-Fi networks. But there's also a lot of other options. There's public libraries. There's the Mac store apparently has a really fast connection. I haven't used one yet because, again, it tends to be in shopping malls and very dense areas, so I have a hard time picking up a signal from those places. Laundromats always have Wi-Fi, which is really cool. Chain electronic stores like Best Buy and fast food spots like McDonald's always have great Wi-Fi. And museums and some other really busy public parks, those are great spots, especially if you have an animal, where you can go sit down and get some work done and be out in the open air and enjoy your time with your dog or your cat or whatever it is, and not cause a health advisory. Okay, so the major advantage to my personal Wi-Fi setup is that it is a Yagi antenna, so it's long range and directional, but I can still turn it, and most importantly, I can turn it from inside my van. So I can set up somewhere a little stealth, a little quiet, and I could be turning my Wi-Fi antenna from inside the vehicle and be checking my connection as I'm going and trying to find the perfect connection. This lets me set up my internet pretty much anywhere. Anywhere I park, I can just turn my Wi-Fi until I find it, as long as I'm within reasonable range of my target Wi-Fi network. So you've got your Wi-Fi antenna, and you know of a few of my favorite spots to pick up Wi-Fi. Here's a few of my favorite apps that help me pick out Wi-Fi networks while I'm traveling. One of my favorite apps is called Wi-Fi Map. It's for Android. I don't really know if there's one out there from Apple, but what it does is it's a whole database of open Wi-Fi networks as well as Wi-Fi networks that people have shared passwords for. This allows me to set up where I'm going to park if I need to get Wi-Fi and I don't want to go into a coffee shop or into a public space. I can just check my map, punch in an address on my GPS, drive to that location, find a nice stealth spot, set up my antenna, and off I go. Once I find Wi-Fi spots, I often like to check them for speed test. So I use this app called Speed Test by Ookla, and it allows me to check the upload, download, and ping speeds of the Wi-Fi network. This tells me whether or not I can actually upload a YouTube video, some photos for a client, etc., etc. So knowing whether or not a Wi-Fi network is there is useful, but also knowing how fast it is also extremely useful. I wish that these two apps would work together. Maybe there's an option out there that does, but so far I've found that Wi-Fi Map has the biggest collection of open Wi-Fi networks and passworded Wi-Fi networks. So whatever you decide to set up your system with, you gotta remember there's three separate things. You got your antenna, you got your booster, and you got your wireless card. Those three things working in tandem, as well as a proper installation and an area that's as free from interference as possible, will almost always give you a nice, clear, open Wi-Fi network. I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll be answering any more questions about my personal setup, my experiences, anything at all. Thanks.